I heard a few things just sort of at the rumor level, like this guy Dick Hamill up in Maine, he's working on new code for games of the late 70s era, Stern Electronics, early Bally's, and I wanted to find out more. So, Dick,
Yeah.
let's talk about it. Tell me just briefly what is a typical conversion of a game that you've done? How do you enhance a game?
Gotcha. So I discovered when I got into solid state machines last year, I discovered the commonality of most of the architectures there with the Bally and Stern. And I was trying to repair a board, so I came up with a little circuit board I could plug into the J5 connector, which is like the little test port on the top of the MPU. And once I repaired the boards, I realized I could just rewrite all the rules.
Okay, hold that in front of the white so
yeah,
that
sure.
people can get an idea of the size there.
So it's just this little board that allows you to plug an Arduino into the MPU board of a solid-state pinball machine. And this board you can get for 50 cents, roughly. You can get an Arduino for, $3 or $4. You can do a whole conversion for less than 20 bucks. So I rewrote all the rules in the operating system for these old MPUs. And I did a new version I've done 2 new versions of Stars. So I've got Stars 2020 and 2021. I did Blackjack, Meteor, Trident, Silverball Mania, Stellar Wars, and I'm working on Middle Earth now. So I've branched out from just the Bally Stern architectures to do the Williams architectures now too. It requires a slightly different board to do Williams because you got to take over the processor slot. But again, simple to build. All the plans are up on my website or on Pinside. If you search for Dick Hamill, you'll find the plans to build your own board. Everything's free and open source, so all the source code is on GitHub. And it makes it so that, like for instance with Stars, when I first got that machine, I loved the layout of the machine and the shots were great. But you basically just wanted to get your 5 stars and then hit that spinner. That was all you were going to do all day long. So to make it more interesting, I created 3 different levels of stars. So you get level 1 of stars, then you have a roving lock-in shot you have to do to lock in level 1. Then you have to get level 2, level 3. If you get all your stars, you get all your drop targets up to, build up to the bonus drop targets and a certain number of pop bumpers, etc. Then you can get into wizard mode. So I've got all different levels. And once I got to the point where, with that game, I had done everything I thought I could do with chimes, I put an interface on these boards for a wave trigger, which is a little digital sound card. So now, if you buy a wave trigger, that's the most expensive part. You can spend 50 bucks on a wave trigger board, but you put your own sounds. I've got sound packages for these games as well. Put your own sounds on there, digital sounds, flashy lights, all new rules. So brings new life to these games that are 40 plus years old.
All right, so if I'm a little intimidated by the making my own board, can I get a board, and what would I have as options for writing my own set of rules for a game? How would that work?
So right now, there's a couple people making kits for this, as you can get on Pinside. There's some kits where you solder it yourself, and then some kits that come just turnkey. You just plug them into J5 and you're all done. And they run between I think 40 bucks for the solder it yourself to like maybe 150 for a kit that has everything all done for you. As far as writing rules, there are a number of people out there writing rules already. Somebody just did a Paragon. There's a really good Flash Gordon out now that's been a couple shows. And if you wanted to write your own from scratch, if you had experience in C, everything I do is written in C on the Arduino. It's all the source code is out there and instructions are out there. It probably takes an experienced programmer a good 3-4 weeks back and forth with the machine, figuring stuff out to do their first one. After you do that, it gets simpler. In the future, I might make a interface for the Mission Pinball framework so that people can just plug into a laptop or whatever. And the Mission Pinball framework is more like just configuration files to do your rules. You don't have to have a whole lot of in-depth programming knowledge to do it that way.
Configuration files as in writing something that's kind of passive based on a switch or something like that?
So you basically list out, all the interactions, this switch causes this state, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. It's not really code-based, although I think you can do code with Python, with MPF, but I think you can get away with lesser knowledge of programming for MPF, as opposed to with my stuff, I give you a library so that you can just tell it what lights you want, what sounds you want, and the solenoids, that kind of stuff. A lot of the interactions with the hardware are handled for you with my library, but you still have to write all the rules yourself in code.
Mhm. And when you say the solenoids, that would mean you're doing a safe actuation of the solenoid, so we're not worried about what some of the professionals working for the manufacturers would like to scare us by saying, oh, but you might burn out hundreds of coils if you program this solenoid driver wrong. And
I mean, if you want to, you can burn out hundreds of coils. But I got the early service manuals when I started. The Bally theory of pinball. Started from that and reworked the way that they did their solenoid actuation, which is they have an immediate actuation on the sense of a switch, and then they have a valid closure, which they do the full actuation. So then I worked with a guy that, if you program machines, you may know as, I don't know how to pronounce it, but his name is Zakaj, Z-A.
Oh, Zach
C-H.
Fry. Yeah.
Oh, is that, okay.
He was here yesterday on
Okay.
the panel.
Yeah, so he had done some work with the PIAs and his own OS, I think for maybe a Dracula or something, back in the day. So he clued me into some of the inner workings of the source code, and then a guy named Slowcar had disassembled a lot of the source code. So all of my stuff works exactly the same way as the original Bally code did. In fact, on my website, I've got screenshots of all the oscilloscope readings of all the actuations, old code, new code, just to show everybody that, nothing hidden. I'm doing everything the same way that they did. You can always burn out stuff by, having a bad connection or a short somewhere. So there's no way I can guarantee that you're not going to mess up your machine, but you're not going to mess up your machine more than you would running the original code. So.
Okay, that's great. So you're just, people should just search for you online, or is there going to be a group, a cabal that?
There's a developers
contact.
group out there. I don't know if it's open to I didn't set it up. It was set up by Mystic Crew. There are some of the people working down in New Orleans on some of the ports. I don't know if that's open to the general public. I think that most of the discussion happens on Pinside right now around this. We don't have any, space dedicated to just this. But
So
you
all
can
the
find
more
some-
open in that respect.
Yeah, you can find everything on Pinside, including all the people who tell me that it's not possible to do it.
Well, yeah, and there is an interesting corporate and legal story about how the Stern Electronics and the Bally Games of the era had the same system, but that's for another time.
Yeah, I'm benefiting from that because the architecture was the same, yeah.
Yeah. So just to wrap up, since we have Kevin O'Connor coming at 11 o'clock, and since one of my favorites is Silver Ball Mania, could you give a quick rundown of what's better about Silver Ball Mania now?
Yeah,
It's the same playfield, right? With
Same exact, yeah, so.
bottom drain kicker and the big loop and
Yeah,
four
absolutely.
bumpers at the top.
Yeah, and if it's not clear, when you plug in one of my boards to your machine, you're using the machine exactly as it was, but I've just taken control of the rule set, so that it requires no additional hardware, no modifications to your machine aside from just plugging a board into J5. I wanted to make it so it was super non-destructive to your machine. It doesn't require you to do, lots of stuff. And in fact, I've got a switch on my board that allows you to flip a switch and you can boot up to old code at any time, flip the switch back, boot up to new code. So you basically can play your machine in two different ways. So with Silverball Mania, it had a decent sound card on there already. I implemented my rules for that sound card. And then on top of that, what I did was I gave it a skill shot. So there'll be a top lane skill shot that'll get you extra points if you get the flashy light. You can't change there's no flipper actuation of lights with the Silverball Mania,
lane
so
change,
you just
right.
have to get it. But there's another skill shot where if you soft plunge through the right
a spinner, yeah.
Then if you get the horseshoe first, that's a skill shot. If you get horseshoe followed by the center N, that's a even better skill shot. And then on top of that, it took away the spotting of a letter, which a lot of people have done with retro code for Silver Ball Mania, because the spotting of a letter was way too powerful. So the horseshoe's not going to spot you a letter. The only way to spot a letter is to get the skill shot on the top lanes. If you want to get a bonus multiplier, you used to just do the horseshoe. Now you have to do the horseshoe followed by the center N within a couple of seconds. So it's a real tight combo that you have to do to get your bonus multiplier. And then on top of that, you're going to spell Silver Ball Mania just the way that you did before, with just hitting the individual stand-up targets. The second time, you have to spell silver first, then you have to spell ball, then you have to spell Mania. The third time, you have to spell them in order, and if you get a letter out of order, you have to backfill letters up to that letter within a certain number of seconds, or else it'll disappear. So you only get credit if you get them in order. And the horseshoe kicker always has a timer on it. I mean, not the horseshoe, the center kicker in the bottom.
Between the flippers. Right.
Always has a timer on it now, so you'll still get it from getting the skill shot, top lanes, or getting the horseshoe, but it'll only come on for a certain number of seconds. The exception to that is you get it for a decent amount of time if you get an out lane and you needed to get that letter, like the M and the A are both on out lanes. So if you get one of those and then you get it to the center kicker, you'll get that kicked back into play. But basically, it took away, it was just a grind on, horseshoe, horseshoe, horseshoe.
Yep.
So I took away that grind and gave you a reason to want to hit it back up to the top, because you can also get bonus multiplier by completing the top lanes. And you have to get up there for your silver letters. So there's reasons to go up top. There's reasons to exercise the rest of the play field. It expands the game back out to the rest of the play field instead of just, people would play just within, 10 square inches of the game, just horseshoe, flipper, and so it makes it expand back out.
All right, well, sounds great, and I hope the tournament players, enter it as a separate game, different challenge unto itself.
Yeah. And it has been in a tournament in Canada. I haven't seen it in the U.S., any of my machines in the U.S., but Stars has been, a new version of Stars has been in a Canadian tournament. So.
Yeah. Well, we should have you back in future years to talk more about this and encourage people to, if they're intimidated by the art and they want to change rules, this seems like the way to go.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.